Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. I am so incredibly thrilled you're here today because, well, we're going to be looking at something that affects so many of us, yet it almost always goes completely unseen. Listen, if you're someone who works hard, stays focused, and is genuinely trying your absolute best to do everything right, you might actually be harboring a hidden sense of modern burnout. Think about it. You've got a good job, your bills are paid, your health is stable. In theory, your life is working perfectly. But beneath the surface, there's this pain, a quiet pain that no one else sees.
And that brings us to the cruel paradox we are tackling today. Why does having everything you're supposed to want feel like nothing at all? It's wild, right? You get the big promotion, you buy the nice car, you build the perfectly stable life, but when you stop for just a few seconds in the silence, you feel this disturbing, strange hole in your chest. The new car didn't actually bring joy, it's really just another payment. The promotion kind of left a bitter taste. You achieved literally everything society told you to want, but somehow you feel like you've lost something you didn't even know you had.
Okay, let's dive into this. Because this visceral feeling of emptiness, it is profoundly real. It's like climbing a giant mountain, making a decade and a half of sacrifices, only to finally sit in your brand new leather office chair and discover the top is a lifeless desert. A cold echo just sitting there right where satisfaction was supposed to be. If you have ever felt this quiet starvation, I want you to know right now, you are not alone. And no, you are not just being ungrateful.
Which brings us to section 1, the mask of the persona. To really understand this, we need to turn to the foundational diagnosis of Carl Jung, the famous Swiss psychiatrist who basically dedicated his entire life to this exact mystery. Jung realized that this feeling doesn't mean your life is a failure. Actually, it means you're living a perfectly functional but completely wrong life.
Jung called this living exclusively in the persona, which is the social mask we wear to be accepted. You know the drill. You're strong when required, you're controlled when valued. But over the years, this mask hardens into a very tight suit of armor. And yes, it brilliantly protects you from the judgments of others, for sure. But it also completely, totally isolates you from your own genuine feelings and deepest desires. Eventually, you just become an exhausted actor who has totally forgotten who they were before the play even started.
So on the outside, this empty success works perfectly. You've got the external facade, right? Measurable achievements, constant praise, a super solid reputation. But internally, you are emotionally suffocating. It is exactly like building a gorgeous, sprawling house that people admire from the street. They envy the architecture, they praise the owner. But when you actually open the front door, you discover rooms completely devoid of furniture. Just empty echoes where a life should be. And, maybe a very expensive, lonely houseplant.
And that leads us to section 2, the deafening modern noise. Because society doesn't just let us sit back and realize this house is empty. In fact, modern culture actively prevents us from recognizing this internal starvation by aggressively filling up every single quiet void. Just think about your typical day. You wake up to aggressive alarms. You're checking urgent emails before your feet even hit the floor. You sit in chaotic traffic, work under harsh artificial lights, and scroll through infinite social feeds. Our brains are processing more data in a single day than our ancestors did in an entire lifetime. To put that into perspective, the average person scrolls the equivalent height of the Statue of Liberty on their phone every single day. It's madness. We're living in a chaotic train station where information just never ever stops arriving. It's like trying to drink water from a fire hose. The pressure is so incredibly intense, it just creates massive anxiety and you can't even quench your thirst.
And this brings us to a really profound truth. We literally invented thousands of ways to distract ourselves, an irrational fear of finding someone home when we arrive. Think about that. We have developed a cultural horror of silence. The human soul needs silence just like our lungs need clean air. But because we are absolutely terrified of what we might find in the quiet, we fill every available second with podcasts and streams and notifications.
So, what actually happens when the soul is completely starved of silence? Well, it sends up smoke signals. Let's look at section 3, the symptom versus the cure, and why listening to the soul is so often misunderstood. See, Western culture treats this emotional emptiness like it's a technical error on a computer, like a glitch or a virus that needs to be immediately eradicated or medicated away. But Jungian psychology, it treats this suffering as a highly sophisticated language of the soul. Think of it like a medical fever. If you simply lower a fever without ever treating the underlying infection, the disease just continues to grow silently.
Medicating away the emptiness without listening to it is exactly like turning off your smoke detector while your house burns down.
And the smoke detector in this analogy is what Jung called the self. This is your essential core. It's the healthy tissue that's desperately trying to heal you. The self intuitively knows who you really are, and it's sending you this feeling of emptiness as a perfectly functioning alarm system. It is warning you with extreme urgency that you are following someone else's script and living a life completely disconnected from your own essence.
But wait a minute, why did we disconnect from our essence in the first place? Well, that brings us to section 4, hiding in the shadow. Because to survive in this modern world and to build that perfect persona we talked about, we've had to basically amputate parts of ourselves.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the concept of the shadow. These are all the primitive, unaccepted, or maybe slightly embarrassing parts of ourselves that we systematically hide away. It's exactly like sweeping dirt under the rug to make the house look clean, or, I don't know, ignoring a really noisy tenant living in your basement. You can pretend they aren't there, but they just keep making noise at the most inconvenient times. And the more energy you spend actively rejecting this shadow, the more vital energy you lose, which just creates even more of that existential emptiness. So how do we fix it? Let's pivot right into section 5, the wanderer archetype. We have to start seeing this emptiness not as some medical diagnosis, but as a sacred calling. We need to look at the hero's journey. Across all of human history, we consistently see the archetype of the wanderer. And to be clear, this is completely different from a modern tourist who just travels to take a few photos and confirm what they already know. No, the wanderer travels inwardly. They courageously abandon the comfortable, soulless certainties of the village to discover their own hidden capabilities. They bravely question accepted, predictable truths, embarking on this incredible journey of awe and discovery to find out who they really are once the social masks are finally stripped away. And this sacred journey? It has a very specific destination. Let's explore section 6, the journey of individuation. This is the process that so often kicks off right during a midlife crisis. You know, when the external project of your life is fully complete, but that internal void has just become unbearable? So, the crucial point is this process called individuation. And listen carefully here. This isn't about modern narcissism. It has absolutely nothing to do with being special or somehow superior to anyone else. Individuation is a conscious, spiral return to your true center. It means radically integrating both your light and your shadow. It means deliberately abandoning that perfect artificial persona you worked so incredibly hard to build, all so that you can finally become authentic, whole, and genuinely true to yourself. But to do this, we really have to let go of the destructive illusion of perfection. Perfection is emotional death. It's rigid, it's static, it goes nowhere. True life is constant movement and transformation. Learning to love our imperfection is so much like allowing a river to flow naturally. If you try to dam up the river to make the water perfectly still, you're literally fighting its very nature. We just have to accept that we are and always will be perpetually unfinished works in progress. And this brilliantly illustrates what happens when we finally change our perspective. Our entire relationship with emptiness transforms. When we stop running away from the void and instead just sit with it, the emptiness goes from the dead silence of a cemetery, which is just the total absence of life, to the fertile silence of a forest at dawn. It actually becomes a space of full, attentive presence, a space rich with unmanifested possibilities, where genuine, new growth can finally organically sprout.
So I want to leave you with this one thought today. What if that strange hole in your chest isn't a terrible defect that needs to be urgently repaired? What if it is actually a sacred space, an invitation, the very place where your soul can finally breathe freely and where your true life can, at long last, truly begin? Sit in that silence for a bit and just let yourself listen.